So today's lab, what we're going to do is we're going to take different masses of aluminum foil, just like you have at home. This is pure aluminum. And we're going to react it with copper 2 chloride. Now there's a little bit of water in here, but this is normally a solid. It's kind of bluish green. We're going to mix it with water, and we're going to make a solution of copper 2 chloride. And what we're going to try to do is use these different masses of aluminum to figure out how much copper 2 chloride is in these tubes. Now there's 3 test tubes. They each have the same amount. I know how much is in there. You don't know how much is in there. And we're going to try to use these different amounts of aluminum to figure out how much is in there. We're going to use stoichiometry to do this. Okay, so we have all these things we know. We're going to start with the given, which is the mass of the aluminum, and we're going to end up with the mass of copper 2 chloride. So now we have our 3 test tubes. They each have the same amount of copper 2 chloride. We added water to make a solution, and what we're going to do is take this aluminum foil. Again, we have 3 different masses of aluminum foil, and we're going to introduce the aluminum foil into each test tube. And we're going to do a close-up here and see the reaction as it gets started. And we'll do a little time lapse to see the reaction. Okay, so it takes a while for the reaction to get started. Once it gets going, you'll see that a reaction will start going. This is a single replacement reaction. So after a few minutes, you can see that it's still reacting. Most of the aluminum is gone in the first tube that had 0.10 grams. Most of the aluminum is gone in the second one. And there's still quite a bit of aluminum left in the third one that had 0.3 grams. You also notice that the first one is still really a lot more blue than the others, so it seems like there's a lot of copper ions that have not been used in the first one. So we'll let this go for a little longer, and we'll see what they look like in another few minutes. So now the reaction is pretty much done, and we're going to look at these one at a time. So if we take a look at the one that had 0.10 grams of aluminum, notice that we formed a lot of copper. Right? This is copper that was formed. There is no aluminum left, and yet there is still a blue color here, which tells you there's still some copper ions here. Right? So we used up all of the aluminum, but we had excess copper 2 chloride. Okay? So this was not a complete reaction from the standpoint of the copper 2 chloride. Now, if you look at the one that had 0.3 grams, let me just shift this over a little bit. The blue color is pretty much gone. It will be gone in a few minutes, but you notice there's a lot of aluminum still left over, right? So we have excess aluminum, and we used up all of the copper 2 chloride. We made a bunch of copper down here. Let me pick this up and show you a little closer. So we made a bunch of copper, but there's still little bits of aluminum left over, right? So we had excess aluminum. So this was not a complete reaction for both reactants, right? We had an excess of aluminum. Now if we take a look at this middle one with 0.2, this is kind of like, Goldilocks and the 3 bears, where we had just the right amount of both reactants. You can see that the blue color is pretty much gone. It will be gone in a few minutes. It takes a while for it, still reacting a little bit. We made a lot of copper down here at the bottom. You can see that nice coppery color. But the aluminum's pretty much gone, right? So this is just right. We had the right amount of copper 2 chloride and the right amount of aluminum for a complete reaction. So remember what we're trying to do here. We're trying to figure out if we know the starting point, the given that we started with 0.20 grams of aluminum, how much of the copper 2 chloride was in there. And we can figure that out using stoichiometry. So the answer here is that, not the complete answer, the starting point is going to be 0.20 grams of aluminum for us to begin our stoichiometry. That's going to be our given.